Hey everyone, Narv here. I finally made it back into Top Cut in Farpa's last card standing, and I really wanted to commentate on this one game I had in Swiss that I had a lot of fun with. I was playing Utopia, and I was playing a non-first turn kill build. I wanted to make a sort of more normal deck and have fun with the other ways to play it. So what I do is, I want to explain a little bit about the deck, just show off a cool game that I thought was neat. I'm playing against Irte Sam on Ice Barrier, a deck that's quite good at comboing and going first, and decent at playing into boards. They have drawn a pretty good hand of a great starter, a card that's good to discard, a card that reborns, all sorts of stuff, and a hand trap. I've drawn a really good board of this crazy card that's illegal in normal Yu-Gi-Oh, but since LCS is using the unlim ban list, we're allowed to play. A free rank 4 extender, a card that serves another rank 4, my best searcher, and rank up magic I'm going to put back with Zexal Construction. So the combo was a little bit confusing if you've never played with Utopia cards, but I'm going to kind of explain it. We're going to get Ascended Sage, who's very important. They're a free summon, and if you make a Utopia Xyz with this card, you can add a rank up magic. Now, this is really core to the way Utopia decks work, because we can get Utopia Force, the hyper rank of magic that lets us make a rank 10 or higher Utopia or Utopic from our deck, and then we can attach this to something if it summons another monster. We're going to immediately turn our Utopia double into Utopia Dragonar, a crazy card you might be familiar with if you ever looked at FTKs. Basically, detach 2 materials and it can summon one of the number monsters between number 1 and 100. It has some downsides, but basically it just lets us search any of these on our first turn to set up. So we're going to search Ultimate Leo to Utopia Ray, and this card is crazy. It's a number monster because it's treated as a Utopia Ray. It can detach a material to equip a Zexal weapon from our deck, and it gets a negate for a monster effect, a permanent negate by the way, if it's equipped with one. Now, our opponent is wisely going to see me activate this effect to put a negate on board and immediately destroy it with Ghost Ogre, who can be discarded to blow up a monster on field, activating its effect. Normally, this would be the end of the game for me. I would instantly lose with nothing else, and I would just have to pass, and they, have full combo, so they would just go crazy. But Soul Charge is a completely insane card, and it will enable us to do some pretty silly stuff here. Soul Charge summons back any number of monsters from our graveyard, and we lose 1,000 life points for each monster. We do give up our battle phase, but if we're going first, who cares, So it's really quite a busted card, and it is fun to play with it in this format. I really wanted to find a deck that could abuse it to its maximum potential, and I think Utopia is pretty high up there because of the fun ways that you can use these cards. Now there's another secret trick coming up, but mainly we're going to see that after I use these cards to make Utopic Sage. This is a powerful card as well. It has a big weaknesses on it, and it only works like one time, but it will let us summon a ZW or ZS, that's Zexal Weapon or Zexal Server, from our deck. We're actually going to summon a Zexal Server here. But this is the cousin of Ascended Sage, Arm Sage. I think he's quite cute. And he has this ability where if you use him for Utopia, you add another Zexal weapon. So we can actually, instead of searching a Zexal weapon here, search it with Ascended Sage, and we can get another 4 on board. Now the trick is, we have it normal summoned, and we can just normal summon a monk. This card is another part of the silly engine that we're going to use to make an actual board. Armor Fortress is completely busted. The whole Armor Xyz engine is like a really goofy way to just add an additional interaction to an Xyz deck's board, because this guy searches a trap that lets us Xyz summon on our opponent's turn, and then can banish itself from the graveyard to equip an Xyz monster from our graveyard to something. And then it can rank up into Fully Armored Dark Knight Lancer, which you rank up into it, and it immediately can, if you ever equip something to a monster you control, just kind of eat an opponent's monster. It attaches a monster your opponent controls to it as material. So by setting this card, on our opponent's turn, we'll be able to flip it, rank up into the Dark Knight Lancer, and then immediately banish it from graveyard to attach an Xyz, and then use its effect. Now we do have to wait a little bit because it's on another chain, but it is quite good. We're going to make Utopia Rising. This is my other rank 4 Utopia, and I think it's a really cool card. I don't see it that often, but if you summon it, it can reborn any number monster from the graveyard and put its materials on it. We actually have no targets right now, but we're doing it just to make a Utopia so that we can activate Armed Sage, because here's the funny thing. This is your main monster negate, and it's really tricky because it's level 5, which is not the level you want your cards to be, and means you can't just like normal summon it. However, if your life points are 2,000 lower than your opponent's, you can just special it for free. And we activated Soul Charge this turn. I am also experimenting with another card, Puri Rise Map, to make it easier to find something and then get low LP so you can summon it. But in this case, it's awesome because we were able to actually find this card after they destroyed the monster was supposed to search it and put it on here to get 2 monster negates and our interaction from Armor Fortress. And now we start trying to play very carefully. Swap Frog's a great card, just a really good hand, honestly. Opponent summons Ron Agerine, discarding Mirror Mage. And this is awesome because Mirror Mage, if sent to the graveyard, can just add any Ice Barrier card from banishment or deck to hand. Agerine is basically a 1.5 card, as in it on its own plus any card to discard, lets you immediately make a level 10 synchro. Either Lancia is the main Ice Barrier one, but Gimir is the Ice Jade boss monster, and she is quite scary because she has a quick effect you can just activate whenever, which makes your monsters unable to be destroyed or banished by your opponent's card effects this turn. But more importantly, if you chain it to any effect your opponent has, you can then banish that card basically if it's on the field or in the graveyard. It's really weird phrasing, but it essentially lets you banish anything that activates its effect on your opponent's field or graveyard. And if it's like a destruction effect or something, it's even worse. Luckily, none of my interactions are destructions. They're just basic negates and and then an absorb from the Dark Knight Lancer. So Gimir is a problem because we will not be able to chain to it without losing something, but I have 2 monster negates, and this is going to come up really handy soon. I go ahead and Z-summon just to make sure I don't have to wait 2 chains for everything. They do indeed make Gimir to protect their plays. Then they activate Freezing Chains. This card is quite scary. It summons any Ice Barrier, so it is a great combo with any low-level Ice Barrier, so it's a great combo with Mirror Mage, but it also protects the monsters from my monster specials from the extra deck, which is a problem because, these are all these monsters. They go Swap Frog, and I think really hard here for a minute, but I let them resolve it. And here's where I have to be careful. Georges is one of their insane new cards. He can basically special summon himself and then summon another Ice Barrier from hand or graveyard. He's a tuner, he has a floodgate on him, he's really quite scary. So the problem is, if I let them go through with this, they'll have 3 Ice Barriers and then they'll be unaffected by my cards. So I have to chain right here. I go ahead and go to negate Georges so it can't summon something back and they stay at 2. They're going to use Gimir, but the trick is, I finally have decided to do this now, because Gimir's monster effect can be negated by the effect on Pegasus Twin Saber to negate a monster effect on my opponent's field. Now, I know they can do other stuff, but I have one more interaction, so I figure I'm just going to deal with it. Here's where I think I might... for a second, I think I've lost the game. They make White Aura Whale, and this guy is scary, because basically when Synchro Summon, he just blows up your opponent's attack position monsters. Great card, one of the best water synchros for decks like that in general. However, I have an ace up my sleeve, because Utopic Sage has a secret effect, where if it's on field or in the graveyard, it can protect Utopias from being destroyed, which means I can protect Dragonar, so it'll just destroy Armored Dark Knight Lancer. But that's a problem, because Dark Knight Lancer is my main interaction, right? Well, the other text on Full Armored Xyz is, the equip spell will be destroyed instead if it would be destroyed. So I can actually chain my equip, immediately attach, say, Utopia Rising from field, and then that way, when this goes off, the Rising will die instead of this, and the Sage will be banished instead of that. And since I equipped, Dark Knight Lancer now triggers to eat something. I care more about the Mirror Mage than the other stuff, because Mirror Mage has another effect on him, which will come up in just a second, because they can just link off their big synchros to make Marincess and bring back the other Mirror Mage. Mirror Mage can tribute the monster and make a bunch of tokens, and here I made a bit of a tactical mistake, sort of. Or rather, I wasn't thinking about something. I was just thinking they're going to, like, Synchro Summon with these, but they have Wins over the Ice Barrier, a very scary card that summons just any number of level 4 or lower Ice Barriers from deck with different names. So they just casually get Speaker and Revealer. Scary cards that thankfully are not quite as scary due to the limitations of what they've got. But they make Coral Dragon, who draws a card. Lancia, their big boss monster that's very threatening, both for the fact that if I ever special summon a monster, it'll summon a whole bunch of guys over and over that can make it really hard to play. And then if it dies due to anything my cards do, they summon this card, Trishula 0, out of their extra deck, which banishes up to 3 cards your opponent controls. That would just kill me. I would just die. This card also floats into the original Trishula, but thankfully it doesn't synchro it. It just negates my board, and then it's big. So they're going to use Revealer, and this was one of the cards I was very scared about, because it just discards a card to summon an Ice Barrier Tuner from deck. Luckily, I negated Georges after it used its effect, so when they summon it, it can't summon something back. Instead, they just make Qinying, a pretty powerful card with protection and stuff on it that won't end up mattering. Now, my opponent chooses not to attack, which I think is interesting. If they had attacked, they could have killed one of my monsters, probably, or they could have been blocked by Utopia Dragonar's hidden effect, where it can change the attack of opponent's monster to 0 when it attacks. However, I really didn't want to do that, because if I killed Lancia, it would float and banish my field, as I said. I think that they were just afraid of it, or they felt that I probably... they didn't really want to risk it. I would have just attacked in, though, because if they summoned that, it would have banished my field, and I think I was dead. Instead, I draw a card that doesn't really do much of anything, so after thinking very carefully, I can't really get rid of this right now, but I can reduce the attack of Qinying and negate it, so it can't use its own effect to protect itself. So I'm just going to stay at parity, negate this and attack it, and then hope that my interactions are good on my opponent's turn. Now, my only real interaction, I don't have another way to equip for Armored Dark Knight Lancer, but I do have the 2 negates on Utopia Ray still. Opponent draws a hand trap per turn they don't really need. Wins over the Ice Barrier, actually adds back an Ice Barrier from Graveyard, and that's very scary because, again, this is Revealer. I have to get rid of this card. I have to stop it. They use this to make a token. They're trying to get more Ice Barriers on field. If they get another one on field, if I let this resolve, their monsters will be their Ice Barriers will be unaffected. Luckily for me, Lancia is not an Ice Barrier. It's Ancestral Dragon of the Ice Mountain, so I am able to negate it with the effect of my Leo Utopia Ray from the extra deck. Very nice. Then opponent goes, okay, well, I will attack in and do my floating thing. Here I was very worried because I was like, what am I going to do about this? But then I realized, this is a remaining monster negate for the monster they're about to summon. I can't negate Lancia's death ability because it's in the graveyard, but I can negate Trishula's ability to banish cards on my field. So I do that. Now, unfortunately, Trishula can just attack in itself and float with its own effect, which summons the original Trishula. It's really big, it has my board, and I don't have a lot of recovery from here. So I'm kind of stuck in an awkward position. I have to draw a good card. They go ahead and make Almirage, which is fine, I guess. I maybe wouldn't have done that. But we'll see. I guess it protects it from card effect destruction, which is nice. And then we're kind of playing a weird game where I draw Zexal Construction, the best searcher. And here's where I start really thinking about what I'm going to do. I'm like, what can I add with this? So I sit here for some time staring at the cards in my deck, and eventually I decide to add Zexal Entrust, which lets me summon a Utopia, ZW, or ZS from my graveyard, or add it back to hand. I can also banish it on another turn to draw a card, but that won't be relevant because they have less LP than me. I need to get over this. I don't really care about the rest of these cards, but I need to find a way to get over this, and I don't have any cards in my extra deck I can summon, except for Zeus. You know, the classic, if you attack with an Xyz monster, you can summon it and then detach 2 materials at any time to send everything on the field. So my plan now is, I'm going to attack these and clear them. I'm going to make Zeus, I'm going to send the board, and then I'm going to reborn Utopia Rising, who when summoned, summons any number from my graveyard. I can just summon back Utopia Ray or something like that, and it won't really do anything, but it'll make me feel better. So that's my plan, but there's actually a secret little bit here I forgot about that is eventually in my favor, which is that when I make Zeus, and I suddenly remember, oh yeah, Utopia Rising summons itself for free. So normally I was planning to save this and wait until their turn before sending everything, but I decide, nah, I will simply send now, so that I can then use my Entrust to get my card back, except I don't actually need it to get the Xyzes back, which means I can use it on, say, my Zexal weapon, Pegasus Twin Saber, to equip onto here and have a monster negate. So if they draw a relevant monster, I still get to negate it. Now if they draw like a Raigeki or another spell, I'm screwed. I'll actually send Mirror Mage to the graveyard, but instead they just draw a single negate, and that's game. So that was a really cool game. And I just wanted to talk about just, how cool it was to see a game where we both tried our best and activated a lot of effects. Thanks for watching!